Welcome to the Predictive Playbook. I'm your host, John Ryan, and I'm have the pleasure of having two of my favorite guests on the show tonight. And plus, they're very smart, astute, professional bettors, and once in a while, they're pretty damn funny too. I have Tony Finn, sports investor and in-game live addict. I think I'm the only one that's a worse addict than him with in-game. And of course, Rob Veno of Rob Veno Sports and the VegasOddsMachine.com. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. And I'm going to start with this. I'm not going to let you guys start. When I saw JJ Redick leave, they were going to have a buyout of his contract with the Pelicans. I was expecting the next sentence to read, and is rejoining his team in Philadelphia. He chose the Nets. Now, I kind of know how those arenas are from time to time, especially the Eagles arena, and Rob knows the same thing. He's been there, I'm sure. Can you imagine the greeting that he is going to get, or maybe I should say not get, when the Nets come to Philly and we have fans back in the stands? It'll be crazy. But that shocked me, along with a lot of other trades, even Oladipo going to the Heat. I don't think any of us saw that one coming either.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you how every trade, listen, a year from now, I'll tell you how every one of these worked out or didn't work out. Until then.
At least we had the players' names right. We just didn't connect them to the right team, I guess.
Yeah. Is there a guy out there? Was there really a guy out there? I'll ask two of you. Was there someone out there that was going to shake the ground for a team? I didn't think there was, but sometimes it's not that guy that shakes the ground. Sometimes it's just the guys in the background, the subtle, or at least those things or those trades or those swaps that appear subtle that really have the impact. Unfortunately, I've talked to 20 people today. No one seems to think anything that happened today, at least so far, is going to be, again, is going to be earth-shattering. I just don't think so. So we'll see. We'll find out.
Rob, do you have any thoughts on the trade deadline today? I guess
I had to make sure I was right, John, because I was under the impression JJ Redick chose the Dallas Mavericks, which he did. He's not on the Brooklyn Nets. He's on the Mavericks.
That makes more sense.
He won't have to worry about coming into Philly and getting, whatever, Santa Claus in 1981 or whatever it was that year. A couple of things here. Guys, from a personal perspective, I took a shot right before it happened. It was reported that Aaron Gordon was finalizing a deal with the Nuggets. I took plus 900 to win the Western Conference with the Nuggets, figuring that if they can find their way there, you can always hedge your way out of that. We don't know what the bracket is going to look like yet, but with the Lakers falling as we speak and no real timetable for when Davis and James are going to be back, could they lose more games in the meantime? I think they're 4 right now. But Denver's starting 5, and then with Morris, Monte Morris, Iowa State Cyclone, and Paul Millsap probably coming off the bench now. I would think Aaron Gordon's going to start at the power forward. Becomes a pretty stout front, top 7 in the rotation for the Denver Nuggets. It's a crowded Western Conference. There's no question.
And I'm gonna ask you a question. If you played the plus 900, when I looked at that, we must have been on the same page, Rob. When I looked, I played, instead of playing the West, I played, if they're going to win the West at 9, why not take the 20-1 to win the championship?
Yep.
So my question would be to you, why not the championship as well at 20-1? I think whoever comes out of the West, I don't care who it is, it is a 50-50 shot to win the championship minimum. And it seemed like to me that was the value, but then I might be wrong. So
no, because you know what, Tone? At that point in time, I was scrambling. I wanted to get it in before I thought the odds were going to lower on me, is what I thought. And I didn't even give any credence to looking for the championship. I was so happy I hit the button time for plus 900. And then I never, I went on to doing something else. So that's just I didn't weigh one against the other.
Yeah. Well, I can't win mine unless you win yours. So good.
Well, we're on the same side again here. Other things that happened here today, guys, real quick. I thought that the Blazers, Portland Trail Blazers, which is a team when totally healthy, is really deep. Maybe 9 or 10 deep, but they stockpile wings. And I thought today was a trade where they got rid of 2 wings and got back one that they thought would help them more. Gary Trent Jr., Rodney Hood off to Toronto. Good for Toronto. 2 good players, no question about it. I think Trent Jr. might have starting capability in the league. He's certainly sixth man worthy, and Rodney Hood will be fine backing up OG Anunoby in Toronto. So they did well. But to bring Norman Powell and get that third 20 plus per night potential guy in their lineup, and probably as a sixth man. Portland probably figured, hey, listen, we have to shorten our rotation for the playoffs. Let's get it down to 8. Let's get a guy who can really fill it up and has proven to be a veteran who can fill it up, which is Norman Powell. So Portland helped, and it just crowds things again. You wonder what happens to a team like Phoenix now, with Denver getting better, with Portland, in my estimation, and they'll get better. We talked about this the other day, guys, when Nusef Jurkic gets back and plays center for them, and Cantor can go to the bench, they'll really be better. But that West, boy, what a crowded spot. And maybe the team that's not going to make any noise, or they could sneak into the playoffs. Now I'd imagine they'll make a run at it. But the biggest acquisition of the day has to be the Bulls getting Vucevic from the Orlando Magic.
Yep.
Billy Donovan has another guy where Zach LaVine doesn't have to go off for 35 points in order for that team to win anymore. So there were some things done. The one that head scratched me, guys, is I don't know what Boston had to go out and get Evan Fournier for. They're a small enough team as it is. Do you really need another 6'5" guy who can score? I'm not sure. Maybe they thought they did. They didn't pay a lot for him. So maybe that was the idea behind that. But that's just a short summary of what went on today in the NBA.
I guess Boston's pretty desperate for anybody they can play guard, I guess the way I see it. So I don't know if that's a fit or not.
Well, Marcus Smart goes to the bench now, right, Tony? Does Marcus Smart start over Fournier? I'm not sure.
Well, I know that I heard you say that we did a show earlier, and I didn't ask you about that. I got distracted to some degree. But I think Boston needed another perimeter shooter, somebody that was more. Actually, Fournier may not be that guy. I don't know. I thought Redick was kind of the guy that would really assist a team like Boston, who has a couple young players, as we well know, who can create their own shot. Not that Redick's that guy, but he's that that catch and shoot guy that I think Boston needs. I don't know that Fournier is that guy, because I think Fournier wants to be a little more creative than that. I think maybe he wants more minutes than he might even get there, you guys. But Marcus Smart will do the thing that you love about Marcus Smart. You should love about Marcus Smart is he's pretty much willing to do whatever coach asks him to do, whatever is best for the team. Marcus Smart's that down and dirty. He is the heartbeat, in my opinion, of the Boston Celtics. He's the guy that sets the tone before the games even start and during the game. He's the one that goes after the loose ball. He's the one that's going to stand in front. If King Kong is challenging you, he's going to be the first guy to stand in front of King Kong and say, if you're going after my boy, you got to come through me first. That's what I love about Marcus Smart. Not the best shooter, not the smartest, but a good basketball IQ and very emotional. I like that a ton. It's what I need in my house every morning to kind of get me motivated to do it for the day. What do you think?
I'm dying to ask you guys about Milwaukee. And I watched that game last night. They're up 25 midway through the third. The fourth quarter starts. And actually from that point on, the third, it was all Boston. And Boston ends up losing the game by, was it 1 or 2 points? But once again, Giannis was contained. The defense that Boston made the adjustment at the half, and then it took effect about at the 6-minute mark of the third. Our team's starting to find out how to defend him. And is this something we can expect? Because we saw Simmons, who technically is a point guard, completely shut him down. But then we're talking about Simmons. But do you think the recipe is in place that's going to make it more and more difficult for Giannis to score and for the Bucks to continue to win?
Tone will have the same answer. So do you want to go or you want me to
go?
go?
You go. You go. I think we will.
Real quick, there's no secret. I mean, there's been no secret in how to stop Giannis in the playoffs the last 2 years. I mean, teams just fill the paint, take away his driving ability and make him shoot from the outside, and they've gone out in the playoffs 2 years in a row. That's never changed. That's how you beat that team. That's why they haven't advanced. That's why they continue to fill that team with three-point shooters. Bryn Forbes, the latest. I don't think Bryn Forbes played last night. The game before against Indiana, he did a real good job shooting. That was the game Giannis didn't play, and they made 24 threes in that game. So, when guys like DiVincenzo and Pat Connaughton and Bryn Forbes and Drew Holiday, when they're making threes, and Brooke Lopez for that matter, that's one full hand of three-point shooters that they have that can fill it up on any given night. When they're shooting, you really can't, Milwaukee's going to beat you. But what they're going to do in the playoffs again is they're going to form that picket line at the University of Virginia. They call it pack line defense, right? They're going to form that paint picket line and say, listen, we'll dare your three-point shooters to beat us. If Milwaukee's three-point shooters are good enough this year, they haven't been in the past, and it's one of the real reasons why Eric Bledsoe got shipped out of Milwaukee, because in the playoffs, Eric Bledsoe had been a complete bust after shooting well from the three-point line during regular season. So we'll see, but I know it's no secret to NBA teams in a 7-game series. We're going to stop Giannis this way, and we're going to see if the rest of the guys can beat us.
So my follow-up question to this is, in the futures market, the Nets are plus 120 to win the Eastern Conference. Why are the Bucks second at plus 300 and the 76ers are plus 500? Don't you think the Sixers are a better team than the Bucks, and probably the 76ers are the team that could take the whole thing?
I think they are. My 2 cents on that is that the Philly is a better team as long as they're whole. And I don't think anyone, including myself, trusts that until something changes. It may never change until the man-child, Embiid, can prove that he can stay healthy and play through, which is a grueling from start to finish, guys. The NBA playoffs from first round to championship round is, for a guy that, like Embiid, his history makes him a difficult guy to trust. That he's going to be there healthy for the entire time. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with it too. I just wanted to see what you guys thought about that for the futures, because it really is a three-team race. I don't think the Celtics have a chance.
They're probably the better team, John. I think the pecking order there is probably wrong. Milwaukee showed you again last night. We just talked about how you stop Giannis, but let's remember that their defense this year has not been the same as it's been the last 2 years. And last night, John's a great example of it. Let's just,
Yep.
They sold out.
I was going to use a phrase I shouldn't use, but they give away a lot of easy baskets. They give away high percentage shooting to teams on a nightly basis. So until they can regroup and become the defensive team that led the NBA in defensive efficiency last year, they were the best, and they've fallen off of that cliff. We'll see, but Philadelphia's probably the right side. I thought that Tony was going to mention Ben Simmons and how you can possibly in the playoffs defensively guard 4 guys and let him drift. Mm-hmm. And that's also a thing that teams have used to their success. But now it's in Doc Rivers' hands, the game plan, right? And maybe the Doc Rivers way will be better than the Brett Brown way, and we'll see a different result. But, they went out and got George Hill today. If he ever plays, on Oklahoma City, I don't think he's played the last 5 weeks. But when George Hill does play, legitimate backup point guard, 3-point shooter, can get to the rim, makes his free throws, pretty good on defense. So they did themselves good there if they can get that guy on the floor, which I'm sure by playoff time they will. I'd agree with you, John. Plus 500. I just think that pecking order's out of whack. The Bucks should be third.
I remember when they did the Harden trade, the Sixers were plus 800. I guess some other places it was 700. And by the next day, they actually went lower. They were 650, and that's kind of where they are now. But I thought that too, the market was telling us something that there's also a lot of uncertainty with Brooklyn. And is this actually? I hate saying a 3-headed monster, but it really is. And if they play well together, that's a completely different story. But it's yet to be seen with the Nets.
they haven't really spent a lot of time on the court together, right? I mean, how
Right.
many games have they actually played, all three of those guys, yet? So at some point in time, and most notably when Kevin Durant gets back, it's going to be like a 20-game, a preseason, so to speak, for those three to get back used to one another and head into the playoffs on the right foot. I don't think they care one way or another. Whether they get the number 1 seed or the number 2, I don't think that matters to Brooklyn. They'll win on the road just as easy as they could win at home. I think it matters to Philadelphia. Philly's performance between home and away last couple of years has really been different. So Philly would like home, and Milwaukee would obviously like home. But you're right, John. The Nets, let's see them together, and let's let them work out the kinks. And I think they'll probably use the last 20 games of the season to do that.
Sounds good. You guys want to move over to college basketball? We had one game that we didn't cover in yesterday's show. That was the Oral Roberts Arkansas game, and that game is line. I'm just bringing it up right now. Last I saw, I believe, was 11. And this is at Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, starting at 7:25 on Saturday. I don't have anything on this game, and I have to rely on you guys to come up with something because I can make a case for Arkansas, and I can also make a case for Oral Roberts. I don't see Oral Roberts having enough firepower to win the game, but after what they've done the first 2 games, I'm clearly not going to say that they can't.
Yeah.
But I think Arkansas played a war in that last game.
Yeah.
Against Texas Tech, and you could see that type of style and the aggressive defense, just aggressive everything, is going to be a problem for Oral Roberts over the course of 40 minutes. They may be able to stay close to the first 20, but then the just wearing down Oral Roberts is what I see Arkansas doing.
Well, Arkansas proved. Listen, what you saw from Arkansas, and I'll see if you guys agree. What you saw from Arkansas in that game against Texas Tech, that they proved that they have the ability under Musselman, who's, let's be honest, Musselman is a guy that would prefer to hang his hat on guys who can get up and down the floor and play more like NBA players and create their own shot, be versatile. But what they were able to do against the Texas Tech team, if you're outside of Moody and Smith, Texas Tech they're brutal to score against inside the arc, inside the paint, and they showed that. And last week, they only hit Arkansas won despite hitting only 35% from the field inside the arc.
Yep.
So they're not the biggest, toughest, most physical team, Musselman's group, but what they showed me was that, listen, it doesn't matter what you bring at this group. They're going to give you their best, and if they have to be versatile and make changes, schematic, technical, or just even mentally, they have the ability to do such. That was my take on that game.
Yep.
Yeah,
Rob?
I would say, guys, the question just becomes: do you think Oral Roberts could hang within 11 points? That's a large number.
Yes, it is.
A couple of reasons why. First of all, they beat Ohio State. No more efficient offense. I mean, Arkansas is not a more efficient offense than Ohio State, and Ohio State was missing one of their better players. So we'll use that as a little caveat. But then they come back and they get Florida. The problem for Arkansas, real quick here, is that they haven't defended the 3-point line whatsoever. You look at the 3-point shooting in the first 2 games they played. Colgate, we saw the first half, Colgate was lighting them up. Colgate goes on to shoot 44.5% in that game. That's followed by Texas Tech, who shoots 50%. And Texas Tech is not I mean, Mac McClung can shoot.
Yeah, no.
But aside from him and Shannon, and not a lot of 3-point shooters on that team, but they go 10 for 20. So right now, Arkansas, the team that you would think would shoot some threes, they're shooting 27.3% for the tourney, and their opponents are shooting 46.8. Oral Roberts just happens to be one of the 15 best 3-point shooting teams in the nation. Now, in the Colgate game, to what John was saying, they just decided we're going to get up in your face and pressure you all over the floor, and Colgate couldn't handle it. didn't have the ball handling experience. But Max Asmus and Oral Roberts, a little bit of a different animal. They enjoy this stuff, and they'll come right back at you. Florida tried a lot of things. Ohio State tried a lot of things. I don't know. I kind of agree with John that the physicality in the end, because this will be the most physical team that they played. I don't think Ohio State and Florida qualify as physical as Arkansas is. And whether or not Oral Roberts can hold up for 40 minutes to win the game straight up, but are they good enough to stay within 11? That becomes the question. That point spread becomes the great equalizer here. And, you could almost see Arkansas pulling this thing off 81-72. Guess what? If it's 81-72, Oral Roberts cashes the ticket. So it's a tough play.
That's not good enough. It's not good enough for me because I didn't like that number. And you just mentioned the final score. It's not enough for me. I played the over. And that number, this over is huge. It's a big college number, 159.
Yeah. And it's come down a little, right? I think it opened.
I knew it would. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to open 161, which is wow, for a big dance game. Yeah.
Well, that implies like roughly 85-75 final score. Yep. And I know for a fact, I do this for all the teams. The number 77 in some of my machine learning stuff is important. Just like in college football, 28 points is important offensively. Some teams do extraordinarily well when they score 28 or more. Doesn't matter what the opponent does.
Right.
But in this particular situation here with Arkansas, I'm interested to see what they are. Oral Roberts is 9-31 in road games or away from home when they allow 81 or more points.
Mm-hmm.
They're 7-18 against the spread, allowing 81 to 86 points in games played over the last 3 seasons. Arkansas, here we go, 7-0 when they score 80 to 85 points in a game this season, 13-2 when they score 81 or more this season, 10-2 when they commit 10 to 13 turnovers in a game this season. So the combination of the turnovers being less than 13 and scoring 81 or more points, that win percentage is 90% over the last 3 seasons for Arkansas. So the line implies that. Yeah.
I mean, I could see it. Either way. Like I say, the question just becomes, is 11 too much? And in your case, Tone, 86-75 gets you there.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Becomes a push on the side.
Yeah.
But those are realistic final scores for this game.
They are. Without question. Oral Roberts is going to throw up they are going to fire away. There's not much you're going to do to stop that. That's it. They are. I mean, and they're going to fire away, from the logo a couple times. I promise.
Well, another point
shooting from the logo.
What?
Asmus actually prides himself in shooting from the logo. Much
I know.
Like Trey Young and Steph Curry. So that's the new breed of shooters. But the physicality of Arkansas, and who the heck wants to play a money line laying 11 points? You don't want to do that. So Arkansas, I don't know how you play it. You have to believe that they're going to win by greater than 11. I'm just not sure, guys. I'm just not sure that they
I agree with that.
Pull that off.
I agree.
Well, Oral Roberts allowed 55% shooting to Florida, too. And Arkansas allowed 35% shooting. I'm sorry, 38% shooting, 36% shooting to Texas Tech. And that's a big difference. I mean, if you allow 55% to Arkansas, it's lights out.
Yeah, it's 2 different style games.
Yeah, and animals are, I agree. Yeah.
Texas Tech, Arkansas is going to be a rock fight. Texas Tech's going to make it that way, Chris Beard. And the other side is going to be a free-flowing game. Mike White for Florida likes it that way from his Louisiana Tech days, and Oral Roberts is going to play that way. So giving up easy baskets. You know what? One team gave up a big number percentage-wise. One team gave up a little number, and they won by 2 and 3 points. So they both got here in their own way.
Right.
The difference, I think what you're trying to say here, John, and maybe we can put it this way, is that Arkansas can win both ways. Arkansas could win in the 60s if they wanted to. They could be physical, and Arkansas can win in the 80s, where Oral Roberts has to win a high-scoring game. Oral Roberts not going to win a low-scoring game against this team in this game. Just not their nature.
They are the best free throw shooting team in the nation. That if they could get to the line a little bit more than they do. But imagine hypothetically, say Arkansas is down 7 with 5 minutes to go. It's it's time to nail the money line again with Oral Roberts, like I had the fortunate opportunity to do with Rob before we did one of those shows last week.
That was the Ohio State game. Yep.
Yep. Plus 625. I don't know if it'll be that this time, but you just don't know. But if it is tied or tight going down the stretch, I think I would take another pizza money bet and take the dog. But this is probably a game too. The in-game betting fascinates me because why bet Arkansas pre-flop? If Arkansas gets out to a 12-0 lead, you didn't lose anything. You're just probably not going to bet the game. But what if Oral Roberts comes out like a house on fire, and they're the ones that are up 12-4? Then you can get Arkansas probably at maybe -7, 7.5, and that's a lot better than 11.
Well, again, John, that's what you did in the Colgate game, right? Colgate blitzed Arkansas to start, and all of a sudden Arkansas's 2.5, I think, right? It was all the way down, or they were getting 2.5, maybe one or the other.
It was 4.5, and I hit submit. It didn't go, and I figured anything at Pick'em or better was a gift. And if it wasn't a gift, I was gonna go down with Arkansas then. But to be fair, as you guys know, I didn't predict that they were going to go on that run either. It just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
That's good points. All those are good points. I think the one thing that we seem to forget, at least I haven't forgotten, or maybe we just haven't mentioned it, and that is this season has been it's been upside down for me in so many different ways. And when I think the Sweet 16 is a perfect example, but what you're saying, John, I think anything goes. I really do. I mean, the fact is that we have a team in the Sweet 16. I never thought Creighton would get here. They did have an easier route, but this team was miserable at the end of the season. And Creighton, all tradition rich as they may be, haven't been this far since I think the mid 70s. I read, and that Oregon State since 80 or 82, something like that. USC hadn't been this far in almost 2 decades, 15 years. Oral Roberts has never been this far, you guys. Alabama, they've won like one game in the last 13 tournaments. We got as many 11 seeds as we got 2 seeds. We got as many 15 seeds as we got 3 seeds. This is not our typical Sweet 16. There's as many Summit League teams as Big Ten teams at this point. There you go. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, John? I think anything that you want to do, anything you tell me, I think it can happen.
You can't rule it out.
No.
Even though the Big Ten has performed very poorly, and you can debate why till the cows come home. I mean, it could be they beat each other up during the regular season, or they just played badly across the board. I don't know how to sugarcoat that one. But you can't rule out anything. Like I learned that last Sunday when I thought, whenever you get like overly confident, like Florida's going to kick the crap out of Oral Roberts, and you think, oh man, this is a 4%er that's I can count on that winning. It loses, and then you have Oklahoma State, which clearly on paper is monumentally better than Oregon State, and then that one throws up on you, and all of a sudden you realize you're not too smart.
Yeah. Hey, John, you guys are talking about this. We're talking about worrying about 11 points and such. We're talking about these numbers that we don't like them. We think they're too much. Yeah. And I know this is it's a Sweet 16, but I'm looking at the scores of the 16 games on Sunday and Monday. Okay. Only 5 games of the 16 were single digit finals. And it looks like to me, if I do the math quickly in my head, the average margin of victory in Monday's 8 was close to 20 points. And we're worrying about 11 points. If you pick the winner, you're there, right?
And I think, guys, because I tried to make this point the other day when we were on, I think historically you'll find that between the opening round where there's 32 games and the second round where there's 16 games. I kind of used the example the other night going back into the mid-'80s of a Middle Tennessee team that looked great first round. comes back, gets destroyed by Wayman
Yeah.
Tisdale in Oklahoma, second round. You find these when a coach only has one day to get ready for the next step, and some teams are still on cloud nine because they pulled an upset. And I think if you go through it historically, and I don't have John, you have the databases, I don't, but just from betting these games for the past, professionally for 28, 30 years, I think you'll notice that from first round to second round is where you see the gap in margin, result margin increases.
Coaching matters.
I don't know what Sweet 16 results are, whether they tighten up again or whether they stay expanded. I'm not sure. But I do know first to second round, you get a lot of that.
The Sweet 16, that's a great question because it depends on the seed. When you get to the Sweet 16, double-digit seeds traditionally do not do well. The talent catches up to them. They're going up several levels of competition and opponent strength, and the lines then are overreacting to what the underdog is doing the last two games. And maybe we have a situation like that with Arkansas and Oral Roberts.
And you could throw a monkey wrench into all of those because if I'm remembering right, Loyola of Chicago was a double-digit seed into the season.
They were underseeded.
They didn't fade.
I bet you guys. I'm always been an advocate of. I know it rubs a lot of people wrong, but I always thought that Sweet 16 everything should be reseeded personally. But then no one ever agrees with me. They said no. You people they've planned for this or that have gone down. But if you reseeded this 16, I think you'd find a lot different matchups, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no question.
Right.
Yep.
But we have what we have.
And it's okay. I'm okay with it. I'm just saying. Yeah.
No, that's a great idea, actually. It really is.
Traditionalists would of course bury us. They would say, "Listen, kick those guys out of the room right now."
Well, you could always preface it and say, "I love the Big Ten, but I think we should reseed the tournament."
Yeah.
That you might get somewhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, if I said that, I would get everything I wanted, plus probably a year's worth of free coffee or free foods. Whoever gives the NCAA the most money, too. Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I would put a bow on this Oral Roberts Arkansas game, guys, just by saying that I think that both of these teams come out extremely hyped up. And I know Tony's got game over, but to me, first half over would not be a bad play here.
I agree.
You're going to get up and down the floor and potentially a ton of points. We've seen it out of both of these teams really so far in this tournament. So I'm trying to check here real quick what that number is at this point in time, if it's changed a little bit. But I think first half might be a pretty good overplay, just projecting how these teams will hit the floor. It's 75. It opens 75. It has remained 75.
Yeah, it is. It's 75 and a half at a couple of places, a couple shops, Penny, Hill. But yeah, 75 looks like a number you should be able to get. You're right. No, and if you like that too, what's wrong with the laying 6? Then if you like that to get 75, if you're an advocate of Oral Roberts being a team that can stay in this game, I would agree that it would be the first half that they're extremely competitive in, and that they've in some sense surprised. Not that it would surprise us, but you know what I mean. But that those numbers are correlated. I think I agree. I like that.
I like that idea, Tony, because if you take the first half line with Arkansas, that puts you in case Arkansas gets out to a big start.
Yeah.
If they don't, you can do 50% pre-flop on the first half -6, and then use the in game like we talked about a couple minutes ago.
Yeah,
I like that better than doing pre-flop for the entire game.
In fact, I'm surprised. I thought this is the first time I've looked at the first half lines, you guys. I'm surprised that Arkansas is only 6. I would have thought they would have been at 7 or more. That's just me. But then,
that would make sense. Yeah. And then
everybody's different. Every team's different. It's funny in the NBA. If you take a really deep, hard look, and I know if anyone has, Rob has. It's funny how you will find there are teams that are skewed, and the bookmakers and the odds makers are no dummies. They know it. You'll look at the teams. What's the first half total? Second half totals? It's not typical you'll see in college, where we're always going to have, depending on the number, but you're going to have that extra 6 or 7% that's added to the second half simply because of the way that college approach fouls compared to the NBA. So, but it's always different. I trust the odds makers. Viewing these types of numbers will help you assess a game if you trust that that the odds makers are putting those numbers out there for a reason. So.
It's only at Pinnacle I'm seeing the team totals, but it's interesting that Arkansas is 84.5 over, minus 117 VIG. Oral Roberts 74.5 under, minus 118 VIG. So the market right there, I mean, it's only Pinnacle.
Yeah.
But that's telling you that the arbitrage is that Arkansas will cover the 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's
interesting.
Yeah, it is. If you don't, and Penny, I don't know about Rob, I don't know about you, John, but at least it used to be. Listen, everything's a little different now. The world's different since the U.S. has grudgingly opened their arms to sports betting. But I always used to, at least when 10 years ago, if there was a sharp shop to follow, it was Penny. And if there was a square shop to stay, that you would follow, maybe just in case you wanted to play an underdog, it might have been Bookmaker. Now things have changed a little bit. There are some sharp players at Bookmaker, and things level out and even out a little bit. And there's places like William Hill. If you're a sharp player, you're not there very long. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, they'll boost you.
Well said.
Plenty of those. Hey, real subtle point here, guys, real quick for folks that are just looking for handicapping angles here. Generally speaking, when we hit this Sweet 16 round, all these teams are traveling to a brand new set of venues. They've shot in the same place for the first 2 games, and they move on for the next 2 games. Here, we've got a lot of teams playing repeating performances in the same venue.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for Oral Roberts. They haven't been in Bankers Life Fieldhouse yet, but Arkansas has. So check to see where these teams have played and where they're playing here. I've done it already, so I know there's a bunch of these teams that are going to be their second trip inside the venue that they're playing at this particular weekend. But it makes a difference. Teams have had a chance to check out sight lines, to check out shooting range. And, I'm not sure how the practice situation goes here for this week because I didn't look into it. But the first 2 rounds, guys, nobody was allowed to practice at the venue that they were going to play at. They all practiced at the Indiana Convention Center. Everybody. They had multiple courts. Everybody practiced there. And the only time you saw your venue was when you showed up for shoot-around. This week, maybe they're practicing at the venues. I have to check into that. But, again, it's just a subtle thing where shooting is concerned if you're playing totals.
Yeah.
A lot of these teams are playing in their place, in their venue for the second time.
But it's a big difference. It's a big difference, Rob, from a stadium that holds 60,000 plus to a stadium that holds 12. The sightlines are much different, as you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Lucas Oil, the first couple of rounds,
right,
with the split courts and the football stadium.
Yeah.
So we don't have that in this round. No Lucas Oil Stadium games. Everything's played in a basketball arena.
Yeah. Which is better. I'm sorry, it's better. I know as many. We don't. It doesn't matter this year anyway. You can't put. You're going to be ostracized and maybe stoned if you put 60,000 people in a stadium right now for a basketball game, right?
Something would be done.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be logical, but something would be done.
No, logic. Where does that come into play in anything we're doing in this tournament? Where?
Now, do you want to go? Unfortunately, I have a hard stop here at 5:45. And I don't want to put you on the spot here to return tomorrow to do the remaining games. But I just said it. But if we could do that, then maybe we should just pick an NBA game that you guys like, and we'll save all 4 for the Sunday games for tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be fine by me, John. I can totally come back and visit with you guys tomorrow.
If I wake up, I'm here.
Okay, I appreciate that. And not to do our schedules in front of everybody, but the reason is my fault. I'm definitely the one that has to be accountable for my internet troubles today. Apparently, the bridge construction caused some rerouting of internet traffic, and my internet was running at 500 megs, and then it was running at 3, all within like 5 seconds. And you can't do a show at all, especially being the host. If you're recording it, it's not going to work, and it's going to be a disaster. So that's on me. Well, I guess that's on the bridge. It's on something.
Doesn't matter.
But we do have time to do one. Let's do one quick NBA game if you guys have a game that you like.
Rob, you? I have a couple games.
Since we just left
the
NBA tip-off show and came here, certainly we could go any direction you want here, John. On that show, I used a show best bet, Portland and Miami over the total tonight, 216.5, 217. Multiple reasons why I did. I don't know that they go along with the masses. But in my estimation, Portland certainly shorthanded here tonight because of the trade that they made, getting rid of 2 players, Gary Trent and Rodney Hood, and having 2 players possibly come back tonight into their rotation off of the health and safety protocols. Normally, a couple of days of conditioning are required before these guys come back. But it would seem to me that they might not be in total game shape yet, Nasir Little and Anthony Simons, which really limits Portland to 6 players. The good news for the Portland side is that they've been off for a couple of days, and Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, I feel, will go 40-plus minutes in this contest. Now, they play tomorrow. You're always looking to see, do they have back-to-backs? And Portland does have back-to-backs. But the reason why I still think they'll play their 40-plus, and the reason why I still think they'll be successful scoring is, tomorrow they play up in Orlando. And the acquisition that they made today, Norman Powell, who plays for the Toronto Raptors, but of course the team plays in Tampa Bay. And he's right there in the Tampa-Orlando area because they were just home. So he just sits there and probably joins the team tomorrow, which gives them an additional player. The 2 guys off health and safety protocols have another day's worth of work under their belt. I think they'll be okay. Lillard and McCollum have shot miserably as a tandem from 3 their last 2 games. I had the numbers on the NBA tip-off show. I believe it was something like 14 for 38 combined, but those 2 guys don't go dry for 3 games. It's just no way. So I think they'll score a lot. On the other side of the coin, if Jimmy Butler doesn't play, it takes some defense away from Miami. Miami also somewhat shorthanded, but they may get Goran Dragic back tonight. It shapes up as kind of a small fest, guys, where Bam Adebayo might have a monster day against Cantor. We'll see, the 2 guys in the middle. But I think it turns into a track meet, up and down. Miami with a couple extra bodies. So I thought 216.5 was too low of a number. I thought this should have been about 222, right in that vicinity. So I'll play that game over. And I'll turn it over to Tony.
Well, I'll stick with we both, as you said, Rob, we both kind of gave out. I had some feelings. I going into the show, there was still a lot of question marks about who was going to end up where, how it was going to affect specific rosters, specific teams, specific game plans. Rob points out in a game that I find intriguing as could be whether you're going to play these. Portland needs to still continue to win. Let's just be honest. This is the West, so compromising in this point in the second half of the season, and the season that's been shortened because of the pandemic. They can win both these. They can win today in Miami, win in Orlando. I think we both know that. How do they do such? I mean, what's thoughts? What's the mindset on that, Rob? I like the Clippers. I like the fact that, despite the fact that I've hesitated early in the season, the first half I faded the Clippers a little bit in the second half of a back-to-back on consecutive, as long as they're playing 2 days in a row, because of the load management that we dealt with last year and Leonard, Kawhi, and such. However, if you look at what the Clippers have done in the second game of back-to-backs this year, they're perfect. They're 7-0 perfect, 7-0 against the spread. And not only are they winning, the margin of victory in those games is close to 16 to 20 points. And they're outperforming the odds makers handicap by almost the same number, which is nothing short of ridiculous. And I don't see where San Antonio does much different tonight. They haven't played Aldridge. Aldridge is a non-factor in my opinion. If he plays, he's actually maybe a negative, a liability. He's gone. And Rob said it this morning better than I can say it. And he said the San Antonio is now a 5-guard offense. They're a 5-guard team. They have no size. And that's why they had to play. In that case, that always leads and lends me to wanting to play over. They want to play faster if you're a 5-guard offense. You don't want to set up against another team's half-court set if they have size, for instance, especially if they have long guards, lean guards. So in this case, I'm not going to play the over, but I like the Clippers. Minus that touchdown tonight. Really, I really like it. And I think it's a game where I like it so much. It's a game where I would play first half and second half on the spread, on the handicap.
Hey, I didn't have a chance to listen to the NBA because of the technological problems. But did they use the that John Ryan guy provides a betting system for that show?
No, they've outlawed it. They've completely outlawed that, John.
It?
Yeah, it's a sacrilegious, and it's like worshiping idols.
It's about time.
The John Ryan cult.
Whenever it goes against a Tony Finn,
right.
They just throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, that's right. We just say, hold it, stop.
I think the angle shows.
John Ryan's making me look bad again.
But that also implies that they did show it. But I'll be honest with you, that system when I was putting it together for the show, like I have a bucket of 25. Well over 1,000 betting systems. So I tried to take the 25 so it covers all the different scenarios, all the different parameters, all the different parts of the game. So when this one came up, I have to admit that I was like, do I really want to put this out? And then I thought, well, all I have to do is tell the betting gods I'm 11-4 with these betting systems on the show, and I'm 3-0 this week. That sure as hell guarantees a loss.
Well, we need to repeat it. You need to repeat it so I can hear it again, so maybe it'll sink in.
All right, I could do that.
I was trying to follow along today. It lost me.
Well,
I wait till the end, till Joe says this system says play on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that's all you really do know, right? But,
who's the play then? Yeah.
I remember I gave him one early on when we were doing this in the beginning. I wanted to give him one of the fancy ones. So it was taking the total and what the teams are scoring. And if that difference between the line and the team scoring was greater than 5%, it lent itself to the over. So the fact that I was doing the 5%, that the total was 5% higher than the team's combined average score, I was trying to point out that the total's telling you that these teams are going to score more than their average for the season, lending itself to an over. But I probably didn't word it right. But this one tonight is bet on home teams in a matchup of winning record teams, with the guest having covered the spread in each of the last 3 games they played installed as a favorite. So they had to be a favorite and they had to cover, and it had to be 3 in a row. So if the previous game they were installed as a dog, obviously that's not part of the 3. That's probably where the confusion comes in. But I think in this case, if I remember right, the Clippers were the team that the last 3 games they were favorites and they covered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is it. That's the system. A matchup of winning record teams. You're betting on the home team. The guest has covered the spread in each of the last 3 games in which they were installed as a favorite. 64, 30, and 1 for 69% since 2015. And obviously that's on San Antonio. And I thought it was worth a sprinkle, but I don't want to go against Tony. There's some guys I would love to go head to head with, but not Tony.
Well,
you know what's funny about that, listening to the details there, John, is that I would have been tricked because dealing with point spreads the way that we do, straight up records really never come to mind. I would not have thought that San Antonio was a 500 basketball team, but I guess they are.
Yeah, they are.
Because straight up records just don't. I generally look at the standings unless it's for, later in the season when we're looking for jockeying for position for playoffs. So that's a surprise to me that San Antonio is even a 500 basketball team. I guess I don't perceive them that way.
They're actually 3 games over, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And San Antonio was right. I just looked it up here. They've been a favorite for many, many games in a row, but certainly the last 3, and they covered all 3.
Yeah, one last night.
So I mean, it's one of those reversion to the mean type systems. It's obviously it wins 69% of the time. That doesn't mean it's going to. What that means is it has a 31% chance of losing based on history tonight. So
yeah, if you look at San Antonio and if you surface guy, John, you're right, and Rob, look at Portland, look at San Antonio. Not that it's significant, not that it's extreme, but both of these teams are over 500. Portland even better, obviously 7. I think they're 7 over 500 compared to the 3 that San Antonio is. But their margin of victories and their margin against the spread are both negatives. And typically, when I see that this late in the season, it's they're average teams or they've overperformed.
right.
Yeah. So I don't know what to say other than that it should be a surprise that San Antonio is 500 because you watch them play. They remind me of Oregon State. If you watch this Oregon State team as many times as I have this year, they're just ugly to watch. They are the least greased, the least oiled offense with guards who are sloppy or clumsy looking and bigger. It's San Antonio's never impressed me. And while I've played them a few times this year, I would think I've been as wrong as I've been right. So,
yeah, I agree. They're mediocre at best NBA standard. But then the Clippers, the next game is against that Philadelphia team.
Mm-hmm.
And Philly has the Lakers tonight, which I guess they're favored 5.5. So you would think that they would probably at least win that game. I don't know. I don't have anything on the game, but then I think the real showdown will be when they play the Clippers. But the Sixers don't have to travel. They stay in LA, obviously. So that could be an advantage for them, but we'll have to see.
Well, it'll be a big game for Doc Rivers, that's for sure.
Certainly will.
Yep. And I do hope he gets a greeting that is respectful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will be. I listen, Boston. They're not. This is not Philly. This guys, Boston aren't Philly fans. I mean, it doesn't matter
Right.
if you're going to Philly and you've done. If you gave Philly a bad restaurant to eat at, you're done, and you're going to hear about it for the rest of your life.
And that's why I brought up JJ Redick in the
beginning. It'll be.
I will.
Fans.
I'm not going to say where I actually saw that.
Yeah,
I
well,
like it.
You got angry there for half a second there, John, but he's on the Mavs, so you don't have to pack your bag full of rocks to throw at him.
LA fans, come on, guys.
It actually was reported as the Nets. I actually looked it up while we were talking because I wanted to see if I was kind of starting to lose my mind at my age.
Yeah. And I use Boston only because of the times Rivers has gone back to Boston. I think LA guys. There's no fans, first off, right? So are they allowing people to a small percentage?
Well, Billy Crystal will cheer for Doc Rivers.
Well, he should. I don't know. Has Billy Crystal, other than maybe a couple movies he's did, ever, maybe he has, maybe on stage too. I may be wrong, but I like Billy Crystal. I think he'll be nice. Yeah,
I was saying when they come off the bus to go into the Staples Center, in Philly, that's not a good scene.
There'll be a couple jonesing, or at least there'll be a couple old hippies hanging out somewhere out there when that'll say, "Listen, I'll cheer for you if you throw me a couple bucks, so I can get some acid, something like that."
Well,
it's California people.
It's kind of not an area you want to stay in after the game is over, if I remember right.
No, you're right. No, it's not.
But I guess we'll end the show tonight, and then we'll figure out the time tomorrow. But for the people that are listening, we'll probably target 4:30, and hopefully that'll work for all three of us. I know it'll work for me. But we'll bob and weave to make it happen. So thank you very much for putting up with my timing today, and the schedule means a lot. And for the Predictive Playbook and Tony Finn and Rob Veno, may all the wins be yours.
I'll take them today, please.